What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. We're talking about lighting. I'm going to show you how you can light your studio for very cheap. And we're going to talk about the different qualities of light, why you might want to light sets. Now, by no means am I a professional. I'm not a gaffer. I like to make it look as nice as I can. Fun fact is I don't actually have really professional lights, but I can show you how to do it for very cheap, just using some simple lighting things from Home Depot so you can make it look nice, cinematic, with nice soft lighting as well. Now, lighting a studio like this is pretty easy as far as cheap lighting goes. Obviously, if you're doing something bigger and you can put money aside to get actual professional or more professional lights, even if you're just renting them, I would highly recommend you do that because there are advantages to using professional lights, including the fact that you have more control over them, which makes it a lot easier, especially if you're rigging lights. And overall, the quality of light that you're going to get from those more professional lights is obviously a lot better than what you're going to get from just picking random stuff up at Home Depot. So I'm going to take the time to explain why you should light and also why lighting is important. If you're going to shoot anything that includes narrative, commercial work, all that kind of stuff, even lighting yourself for a YouTube video, you're going to want to make sure that your light is pleasing, that you're well lit as a subject so that people can see your face, and if they're paying attention to you, it's easier to focus on the message if you're well lit, nicely presented. For commercial and narrative projects, lighting is one of the most important things. You're going to spend more than like 50% of the time setting up sets, lighting stuff, working with your gaffer. If you're the cinematographer or the videographer, you're going to be working with a gaffer, a lighting person to set up your sets, get it lit exactly the way that you want, make sure that when actors are stepping into the light, that it looks exactly the way that you want it to look, that you're shaping it, the shadows across their face, everything like that. Why? Because it tells a story. Lighting is going to be one of the most important things to tell your story. You can pick what people see, what people can't see, including in the set behind you, but also on people's faces. So obviously the first most important thing is that you need the lighting too, so that the camera can actually see what's going on. That allows you to shape light to make sure light's coming from all the right directions, and then you get to shape that in post as well. The second most important thing, besides just being able to see what you're pointing your camera at, is that with lighting you can also create emotion. You can create things like sinister characters, very moody characters. You can create even a comedic environment with just the lighting. And when you're watching these things, like when you're watching movies, pay close attention to the lighting, because the lighting actually does more than you think, especially if they're using the lighting as a character to sort of tell the story, the narrative story of the movie. A lot of times, if you pay attention to what the lighting's doing, it'll also inform the character, the story, where you're at in the story. One of the things that some of the most popular cinematographers are known for is their lighting and how they set up a shot, because that's really important before the cameras start rolling. All right, now that's lighting on a whole different scale. We're talking about professional movie lights. We're talking about lots of lighting, but that's kind of the last step. You can get there eventually, obviously work with people that are professionals and have the gear. But what about when you're just starting out? And like the title of the video says, how about doing it for under $100? Well, I got a solution for you. I'm going to show you exactly what I do. But first, let's talk about quality of light. One of the things that you'll hear me refer to throughout this video is soft lighting versus hard lighting, which both make up the quality of the light that you're using. Now, what do they mean? Well, soft lighting is lighting like this, where the shadows are really soft, they wrap around the face, there's no harsh lines that you can see. That's because the light source is big and the light source is diffused. The bigger the light source and more diffuse, the softer the light's going to be. Then there's also hard lighting. Hard lighting, as you can see, if I point this light source directly at my face, I'm starting to get pretty harsh shadows, well defined, and with sharp edges. Now, this isn't as pleasing, but it's definitely a type of light that you can use, especially depending on the type of story that you're telling or the type of effect that you're trying to achieve. For example, a lot of times putting a hard light down here can evoke something spooky, or putting it on top, you can get shadows beneath your eyes, make you look more sinister, and that's all important to the type of story that you're trying to tell. Let me get rid of this because it's blinding me. So typically when you're lighting stuff, soft light is going to be a lot more pleasing, especially on talent or even yourself. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the quality of your light. Right, so another thing that you can do, if you have no lights, then you can also use natural light. If you want it to look nice and smooth, soft lighting, then you're probably going to want to diffuse a big natural light source that you have either in your house, or if you're outside, get like a diffuser where you can actually diffuse the sun, and I'll show you that in a second. But right now, for example, I'm standing inside, but it's diffused. The lighting on me is pretty soft. Now, I just wanted to show you this because this is where I was standing right over there to use natural light. But if you look, now I'm over here against the window and I'm exposed for outside because I don't want all of this to be blown out. But if you look now, I'm underexposed and you can't really see me that well. If you're gonna use natural light and you're gonna diffuse it, I would recommend not standing directly in front of the light source because you're either gonna have a really blown out background, or if you're gonna expose for your face, you won't be able, it won't look very nice outside. So here's an example. If I bump this up, so now you can see me, but outside looks terrible because all of this is blown out. If you're gonna use natural light, you kind of have to be smart about it. Pick your angles, make sure you know where you're filming so that way you can get the best angle without having the light source in frame, so that way you can balance both the light on your face and the light in your surroundings. All right, so I'm back over here. I was talking about diffusion, right? The sun's not shining through this window. I have the curtains that you saw behind me, which are also diffusing the light, right? These are the curtains. You can pick these up at IKEA. If the sun was shining in this way, those would also work to diffuse the sunlight so you could use it as a natural light source. Now, if you don't have that or you don't have curtains, the other thing that you can buy is a diffusion disc. They look like this. It has material that the light can pass through, but it diffuses it. When you are in front of a harsh light source, the light can come through this and you can diffuse it somewhat before hitting your face, so you can still have nice soft lighting on your subject or yourself or whoever you're filming. And this is pretty cheap. I think this is probably about like, I wanna say maybe 20 bucks for a pretty big reflector disc like this. All right, so also to just prove my point, or to show you guys what it looks like, I'm outside right now, standing in the sunlight. So this is pretty harsh lighting. You can see the harsh shadows on my face. But if I take this reflector disc and put it in front of the light source, the light becomes soft. That's what you guys can use this for. Pretty useful tool, especially if you're doing work outside, to soften up the light and make it look a little bit more pleasant. All right, so that's pretty much it for natural light. So there's definitely pros and cons to using natural light. I'd say some of the pros are it's free. It's definitely available mostly throughout the day. You can film at any time and you have light available, whether that's standing by a window or going outside. Some of the not so great things about using natural light is that, for one, if you're aiming for consistency, especially between shots, that's pretty much out the window, mostly because the sun goes behind clouds. Suddenly your whole lighting has changed. The lighting consistency is going to go out the window. You're going to have sun behind the clouds for one take and then full sun on another take, and the shadows are going to change, the lighting quality is going to change. So if you try to piece those together in editing and kind of cut in between the different takes, you're going to be able to tell that it's wildly varying lighting. That's usually not going to fly, especially if you have clients. They're going to want a consistent look throughout. It looks more professional. It makes you think that the whole thing was shot in one take. Using natural light really isn't going to fly for that. Also, if you're shooting anything like at nighttime, natural light's not going to be available. So if you don't have additional light sources, that's really it for you. There's no filming at nighttime. And then obviously another con that sort of goes with what I said before is that you can't control it. So it's very hard to control. It's very hard to set up a certain scene that you want. When you step out into the sunlight or you step next to a window, what you get is what you get. So you don't really get to control that. You don't get to make cool shadows on people's faces. You don't get to try different types of lighting. It's just lighting. All right, so I'm going to show you guys the way that I do it and the cheap way that I found to light videos. But what you're going to need is, if you go to Home Depot, you're going to find this thing right here. Now, this is just a work light with, it's got this shiny part inside, so it's going to reflect the light out. I think this one's like $8. What you can do is take this. I use the smaller one. I think there's also bigger ones that have like a bigger dish, but that just spreads the light out further. So I didn't really need that. Plus these ones have stronger clips as well on the bottom, I tend to find. You can take one of these and then get yourself an LED light bulb, whichever one you want. This one is a Philips one that you can connect to Wi-Fi. If you're looking for lots of light to be able to light videos in a whole space, for example, you probably want to go for the highest watt equivalent light bulb that you can find. I got all daylight lights, and that way I just balance my camera to daylight settings, and then I get a neutral white color for my recording. So my suggestion is get the highest watt type of bulb that you can find, LED. And also when you're buying these, make sure you pay special attention to how good the light bulb actually is in terms of color reproduction. You're not going to be able to get as high amounts as you can with professional lights, for example, which is one of the trade-offs of using cheaper lighting. All right, so just to clarify as well, there's a lot of terms out there talking about how good the actual light bulb is in reproducing like daylight, for example. And if you know anything about light bulbs or LEDs, basically you have a little light emitting diode in the light bulb. They tune it to shine to a certain Kelvin. Now, you have everything from 3200 Kelvin, which is on the warm side of things. Traditional incandescent light bulbs and candles and all that kind of stuff is like 3200 or below. And then daylight is usually around 5600 Kelvin. If it's like overcast, it can be higher than that in the 6Ks. So your measure of CRI and all those things that rate like the quality of the light and how good it is talking about how accurately it reproduces a particular light spectrum. It gets a lot more complicated than that. I'm just kind of skimming the surface here to keep it nice and simple. But essentially, what you're going to want to pay attention to is when you're picking out light bulbs, the higher the CRI value and that kind of stuff that rates the quality of the light, the better it's actually going to be. And it doesn't have any other different tints or shades in there, because a lot of times what can happen is if that number is really low, you can start getting a really bad like magenta tint to the light or a green tint sometimes to the light with LED light bulbs. Obviously you don't want that to happen, because when you start looking green and purple, it starts affecting your skin tones and obviously the lighting doesn't look as good. That's why the number is important, and that's what all the CRI stuff and all that means. That was a very, very gross oversimplification of lighting quality measurements, just so you guys understand what I mean when I was saying look at the numbers and the CRI and everything. So anyway, moving on. What you're gonna do is you can take one of these light bulbs. I think the light bulbs generally go for about 20 bucks. Screw it in. And that's it, there you go, you have your light. So this is the entire light. You have your light bulb, you have the reflector dish, and it comes with a plug. You can plug it in, and then it has this nice little clip. Since they're technically used as like work lights, so you can just clip this onto pretty much anything, and there you go. Now you have your light source. Like I said, I have 2 more of these lighting me right now, and I'll show you guys the setup. All right, so this is what I'm using to soften up the light source. If you want to get soft lighting, the key is you want to make the light source bigger. So because we're using light bulbs, obviously the sources of light are pretty small. It's just the light bulb. Now they do kind of have that like cloudy diffusion on them, but that's not enough, and it's not making them a really big light source. So what you can do is just grab a white bed sheet. The whiter the better, so that way it doesn't mess with the actual Kelvin of the light. So you're still getting a pure white light. What you can do is just spread the bed sheet out. Now I just have it clipped on with some clamps here, and kind of just set up as a, you know, it's just flowing down here. Then put the lights on the other side and make sure that you kind of set them a little bit further back, enough to give you sort of a big light source. And you can set them up sort of face height where you're going to be sitting and shine them through the bed sheet. That makes the tiny little light bulb into a giant light source. And that's what softens up the light. All right, so there you have it. I'm using these lights that I just showed you to light me, and it's going through the bed sheet, which is diffusing it and making it a big soft light source. And then I have the other one that I showed you guys, the other light over here, just sort of giving me a little bit of a backlight and also lighting up the wall a little bit so that it doesn't look so dark and kind of like nothing's happening over there. That's pretty much all I have for you guys. We talked about a couple of things in this video about lighting. There's a little bit of a different video, so let me know if you guys like it, but this is a good alternative even just for a home studio. If you learned something though, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button down below, as it helps this video do well and also gets more people to my channel. And if you guys like this type of video, let me know down in the comments below. I'll try to do other stuff besides just color grading and DaVinci Resolve stuff, but we're gonna still keep doing plenty of those videos as well, so don't worry. Until next time though, go out there and create something. La da vida.